The biggest surprise of this month was me liking Truly Devious. Oh my god, guys, I hated this book. Unfortunately, I finished the book. Hey y'all, my name is Merritt. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing my October wrap up as a tier rank. So just for the sake of being completely transparent with you guys, I wasn't sure if I was going to film this video. I asked on my Instagram story and I said, hey, I'm not really feeling like filming. Do you guys still want my October wrap up? And while most of you guys said no, it's okay, a lot of you guys said do what you need to do, but also I really like your tier ranking videos. So I'm going to push through and do this video for you guys. I just wanted to apologize in advance if I am a little bit low energy right now. I just haven't been feeling like sitting down and filming actual videos. So sorry in advance. If you're new here and you haven't seen one of my tier ranks before, just wanted to let you know that there are timestamps in the description below because these videos tend to get lengthy. I go into my statistics for the month as well as what I DNF'd. Then I'm going to move into a portion where I talk about the 3 books that I loved the most this month or books that I just really want to highlight and encourage you to read. And then I'll get into my actual tier rank. So go ahead and skip ahead to whatever interests you the most. First, let's talk about the statistics for this month. I read 22 books this month, and I DNF'd 4, which I'll go into more depth in just a minute. I read 7,841 pages for an average of 356 pages per book read. My average rating was a 3.75 out of 5. I completed 10 of the 13 books that I originally set out to do in my October TBR, and I DNF'd 3 of them. So I did actually get to every single book that I intended to, but I just didn't finish all of them. And then as far as genre, I read 8 thrillers, 8 fantasy, 3 contemporaries, 1 romance, 1 nonfiction, 1 graphic novel, and then I read 7 young adult, 1 new adult, 2 middle grade, and 10 adult. As far as for the formats that I read these books on, I read 4 ebooks, 11 physical books, 6 audiobooks, and 1 is a combination between a physical and an audiobook. Now, talking about the books that I DNF'd this month, I actually DNF'd 4 books, which is quite a lot for me. I actually DNF'd 2 of them for one specific video, which is reading like fictional Meredith. So I read about characters that had the same name as me, and I sought out what they had in common with me. I will go ahead and link that in the cards and in the description below if you're interested in checking that out after this video. I really like the concept of this video, but the books were bad. The books were not stellar. So I DNF'd 2 of them. The first of which is A Kiss of Shadows. This is a paranormal romance that I got maybe 70 pages into, and I realized that it just wasn't for me. And that was okay. And then for that video, I also DNF'd The Lake District Murder, which is like a British crime story where a guy is killed and he was found in his garage set up to look like a suicide. But then this Detective Meredith, said, I don't actually think that this was suicide. I think this was a murder. So they're investigating that and trying to find out the killer. I DNF'd that at 50%, and I don't have any regrets about those books. I do not think about those books ever. And if you want to know more of my thoughts as to why I DNF'd them and what I thought about the fictional Meredith in those books, again, go check out that video. I also DNF'd Jade City. This was a buddy read for the Shelf Space Discord, which is a sci-fi fantasy book club hosted by Jessie May, and I will link that down below as well. I don't think that this book is bad. I DNF'd it probably about 150 pages in, and I think that I really could have enjoyed it if I had continued it, but I felt a reading slump coming on in the beginning of the month when I picked this up, and it just was not the right time for me to read this book. So I decided that I just was gonna put it down, and I feel so much better about it because I had a lot of pressure on myself to actually finish it. I do think that I could revisit this book one day, but that day is not today. I'm not in the mood for that kind of book, and it just was a lot for me at the time that I was reading it, so I put it behind me. And the last book that I DNF'd this month was You Had Me at Hola, and this is actually going to be explained in a future reading vlog, which you will be getting very, very soon. Hopefully it'll be the next video after I post this one, but I will give you more of my thoughts as to why I DNF'd it in that video. Basically, I just thought it was okay, and I didn't want to spend my time reading a very average book. I would rather read something that I actively love. Okay, so those are all the books that I DNF'd, and now I'm going to tell you what I'm currently reading, which is The Vanishing Stair by Maureen Johnson. I will actually talk about Truly Devious in just a second here. The biggest surprise of this month was me liking Truly Devious because it's a YA mystery thriller, and I just did not see this coming, and I am just really anxious to pick up The Vanishing Stair. And I already have. I've read about 50 pages of it, but I wanted to let you guys know that I did start this in October. And now talking about the 3 books that I really enjoyed this month, the 3 books that I want to yell at you from the rooftops and tell you, please read this because I loved it. The first book that I want to talk about is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, and this was the biggest shock of the century. I actually only gave this book 4 stars because I do have a few criticisms of it, but I cannot stop thinking about this book. I want to know what happens in the second and the third one, and I am just shocked because this kind of sounds like a Good Girl's Guide to Murder to me, and I didn't really enjoy that one, so I was thinking maybe I just don't like when younger people are trying to solve a mystery, but I actually really loved this. I topped it all up, and I was excited to try and guess who Truly Devious is for myself, but honestly, I have no idea. If you don't know what this book is about, it follows a young girl named Stevie who is trying to figure out a crime that happened like years and years ago at this academy that she goes to. So you're following two different timelines. You're following the past when the crime actually happened, and you're also following current day while Stevie tries to figure it out. And there's also like a little side mystery that goes on in this book. I would say that this book isn't very exciting as you would expect a mystery to be. I think that this book is very much intended to set up for the future books, which honestly I'm okay with because I really liked the atmosphere of this book, and I think that picking it up in October really helped me like it more, I guess, because I loved being at this boarding school. I loved reading about Stevie and all of her friends there, and I loved just knowing about everything that happened in this school because there's just a lot of cool history behind it. So I really liked this book, shockingly, and I think that you should give it a shot if you aren't typically a YA mystery thriller reader because this one might surprise you. It surprised me. Then I want to talk about Legendborn, and oh my goodness, you guys, this one got a glowing 5 stars. I do have one small criticism of it, which I will address in just a second, but this book was no surprise to me that I was going to love it as soon as I heard what it was about. This book follows a young girl whose mother recently died in a car accident, and she goes to this university as part of like an early college program. So she's 16 years old and she's at this university, and the night that she gets there, she goes to like this party and she sees something really weird, and it basically launches her into this secret society that is inspired by King Arthur. And I love King Arthur retellings. I don't know what it is, but I just absolutely love it. I owe that probably to like the days that I was obsessed with Merlin, but I just loved everything about this story. I loved hearing about the main characters, and I loved hearing about the magic system in this secret society, and it was just fantastic. The writing is so digestible, and I just didn't want to put this book down, but I also didn't want to pick it up because that means it was going to be over. And I'm obviously very sad that it's over. I want the second book immediately, and I don't know when it's coming, but I need it in my hands. My one criticism of Legendborn is that it felt like the main relationship happened a little bit too fast. I did not see it coming at all. So when things started developing, it was completely out of left field for me. And for me, I just really dislike that trope. And sometimes it can be used effectively, and I'm not super mad about it every single time that I read it, but in this circumstance, I just didn't understand why these two characters liked each other and how they got there, and so that was just a little bit frustrating to me as a reader. And the last book that I want to highlight is actually an arc that comes out in March of 2021, Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. I am so thankful to have received an arc off NetGalley, and I absolutely loved this book. I loved hearing about Eve's story and seeing her fall in love with her significant other. It was just amazing, and it was just everything that I wanted because I adored Get a Life Chloe Brown, and I really did like Take a Hint Dani Brown, but I think that Eve Brown is going to be my favorite out of the trilogy because it was just so good. I really connected to Eve, and I really liked her main male protagonist, and the setting was just immaculate. It had a bed and breakfast in it, and it was just so cute. And I loved everything about it. I literally was laughing and crying within pages of each other, and this book made me feel everything under the sun, and I am just so thankful that I had an opportunity to read it early. It is definitely one that I want to revisit in the future. This book follows the last Brown sister, Eve, and she is kind of being told to act her age by her parents. She doesn't have a serious job, and her parents keep saying, you know, if you don't start acting like your age, we're not going to support you anymore. So she goes out to this bed and breakfast to find a job, and she accidentally gets hired. And from there, there's just a really cute romance that takes off. And if you enjoyed Get a Life Chloe Brown or Take a Hint Dani Brown, you're going to love this one as well. 5 stars. I don't know if I said that, but obviously. So now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, we can actually launch into the tier rank portion of this video. So first things first, I'm just going to quickly talk about the books that I just mentioned, the 3 that I wanted to highlight. Truly Devious, I'm just gonna go ahead and put it on the new favorite shelf. I think that this could change based on my experience with the second and third book, but I really adored this book. And while I didn't think it was a perfect read just because it read a little bit too young for me, I really did enjoy it, and I'm excited to see where this story goes. I'm also gonna go ahead and put Act Your Age, Eve Brown up there as well, just because I loved it so much. And then I also am going to put, where is it? Legendborn. Okay, I'm gonna put Legendborn up there too because I adored it as well. Now we can talk about books that I specifically read for videos, and there actually aren't that many in here because for some reason I just didn't read this month for videos. I read a lot of books that weren't on my specific TBR. But the first that I want to talk about is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This one's also going to go on the new favorite shelf. I almost talked about it in the previous segment, but I have a whole reading vlog on it, so you can already go see how much I love this book and everything that I had to say about it, so I didn't feel like I would contribute anything by talking about it again. So I'm going to link that reading vlog down below as well as in the cards here if you want to check it out. But this book was amazing. It is about a woman named Addie LaRue who makes a deal with the devil to live forever. But the catch is that everyone that she meets will not remember her. And so one day when she actually encounters someone who remembers her name, she just goes through a whole whirlwind of emotions, and she really starts to get connected to this one person who remembers her, and it is just whimsical, it's magical, it made me sob. And if you go watch that vlog, you can see really ugly clips of me crying. It's hilarious. The other books that I read for videos were Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I'm gonna put this one in average. So I read this one as well as the next two books that I'm going to be talking about for reading Haley's favorites. Haley is one of my friends on BookTube and I absolutely adore her channel. She is hilarious. Go check her out if you haven't already. I will also link that video in the description as well as in the cards. I read 3 different mystery thrillers because Haley is my mystery thriller queen. I had varying experiences with them. So again, go check out the video if you want more in-depth thoughts. But Pretty Girls was the first book that I read for that reading vlog, and I gave it 3 stars. I think that there are a lot of things that I could have liked about this book, but overall, like, I don't know, thinking about it makes me feel weird because Pretty Girls follows a young woman named Claire, I want to say her name is, and she had her sister go missing when she was younger, and they've never found out what happened to her. So when things are starting to happen in the town that she lives in as an adult, she starts to think and wonder, is this connected to my sister disappearing all those years ago? And I have a lot of feelings about this book. I want to warn you guys to please look up trigger warnings for Pretty Girls if you're interested in reading it, because it does not shy away from literally anything. The details are all there and it is gross at times. Like, this book definitely made me want to throw up. It definitely had me scared, but I don't know how effective the use of those elements were in the book, because I feel like a lot of times violence and gore was used for shock value and wasn't actually contributing to my enjoyment of the story. Not that I'm supposed to enjoy a book like this, but it wasn't really adding anything to the story, I suppose. So I kind of just kept wondering, like, why is this violence being used beyond the value of shock? So that's kind of why I'm going to put it in the average category. I know a lot of people really do like this book. I don't think it's bad, but I do just have a lot of criticisms that I feel like are valid for it. The next book that I read for that reading vlog was The Last Mrs. Parrish, and I'm gonna put this in the good category. So The Last Mrs. Parrish follows a woman named Amber who encounters this woman named Daphne, and she befriends her. And you find out pretty quickly on that Amber is not interested in Daphne. She is there to steal her husband. And so it's very interesting being in Amber's head, but there is a twist in this book that I did not see coming at all. Like, it seriously had me on the edge of my seat. And when it happened, I was like, oh my God, did that actually just happen? Like, I had to rewind the audiobook because I was just so shocked and I did not see it coming. And I feel like the author did a really good job of connecting all the dots to it by the end. And I want to put it in a new favorite category because honestly, this is one of my favorite thrillers that I've read this year. But I do have to recognize that the beginning of the book is really, really boring. And until the twist happens, I was not invested. I think I was going to give it 3 stars. I was pretty convinced that I just wasn't going to like this book. And then that twist happened. So if you're interested in reading this, read until the halfway point because you're going to be on the edge of your seat and you're gonna just want more. I really, really did enjoy this book. The last book that I read for that reading vlog is No Exit by Taylor Adams. And this one is also going into the good category. I gave this one 4 stars. I liked this book, but like Pretty Girls, it has me wondering about violence and were things really necessary to be included. So I do feel like No Exit, it was more rationalized than it was in Pretty Girls, but I was getting really grossed out by this book, and this book actually made me want to physically pass out. Like, I had blacking vision and I was really, really scared. So I do have to give it to the book because it made me feel all these responses because of what was happening in the story, and that really attributes to good writing. But personally, that's not something that I seek out in books, and I tried not to let that impact my rating. I was convinced that this book was going to be 5 stars from the beginning. I loved it, and by the end, I was kind of like this book is making me really uncomfortable, but maybe that's effective. So I also have conflicting feelings about this book, but overall I did really enjoy it. It follows a woman named Darby who is stuck in a snowstorm, and so she stops at a rest stop and she sees a child in a cage in the parking lot. So it's very high stakes, it's very much anxiety inducing, and if you cannot handle gore, I don't recommend you read this book because that is why I got so freaked out by it. But overall, I think it is a very good book. And the last book that I read for a video is actually not out yet. The video is not out yet, the book is. And that was An Enchantment of Raisins. What did I just say? An Enchantment of Raisins? An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. And I'm gonna put this in the You'll Find Out Later category because I can't tell you how I feel about it, but I will say that I don't understand a lot of people's criticisms of this book. Like, I don't understand why this isn't more highly rated. So obviously I feel positively about it, but I just don't understand why people dislike that. And I can see why, because it is a little bit bland. Like, it's not super spicy. It's very much like a classic fairy tale. It's very whimsical, but the writing was super good. The characters were all really well developed, and overall I really did enjoy my time with this story. So I'm just a little bit confused as to why it gets so much hate. And if you don't know what Enchantment of Ravens is about, it's about a woman named Isabel who is a painter in the world of fairy, and one day she paints the Autumn Prince's portrait and she paints sorrow in his eyes, and from there disagreement kind of happens and they're taken off on this journey, and I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was good, but you'll find out more of my concrete thoughts later. Now I want to talk about the books that I read for read-alongs and book clubs. So first and foremost, The Lightning Thief and The Sea of Monsters. I'm gonna put both of them in the good category. I really adore this series so far, and I'm really liking my reread of it. If you don't know, I'm hosting a Percy Jackson read-along with a couple of my booktube friends. There's information about that in the description below, and we are currently on The Titan's Curse. I really enjoyed reading these two books, and I'm very excited to get to The Titan's Curse. If you don't know what The Lightning Thief is about, it is about a young boy named Percy who finds out that he is a demigod, which means that he is a half god, half human. And so it's kind of him coming to terms with that and the journey that follows. And it's really, really cute. It's really funny, really heartwarming, and I'm really enjoying the discussions that we've been having on this book series. So I really encourage you guys to join us for a read-along if you are interested. It is not too late. We do books every 3 weeks, so you have time to catch up to where we're at if you would like to. Then we have The Shadows, which was the Page Turner Book Club's pick for October. So that live show is on Jess's channel, which I will also link down below. And I'm gonna put that in Wish It Was Never Written because, oh my God, guys, I hated this book. I went in more depth in the live show, so definitely go check that out if you want like a full-length discussion on it. But this book follows a guy named Paul, and he was friends with someone named Charlie Crabtree, who used lucid dreaming as an excuse to basically like murder people. And Charlie's murders inspired someone else's murder. And so things happen, and you know who the murderer is like really early on. Like, that's not the mystery of this. You're trying to find out the motive, and like there's other stuff that happens within it. But this book was just really confusing, and talking about it in the live show made me hate it even more because I gave this book 2 stars. Okay, so I really liked the writing of this. I think Alex North will do a beautiful job if he ever tries to write literary fiction because I love his writing style. I think that he can write some really profound things, but I did not like how it felt really spoon-feedy. Like, every single chapter ended with like a mini cliffhanger. It was just a lot. It was a lot, and I did not enjoy it. So also for book clubs, I read Behind Closed Doors, and I read this for the Pros Before Bros book club. I'm gonna put it in the average category because I gave it a 2.5 star rating, and that is the epitome of average for me. And there's nothing I actively loved or actively disliked about this book. And I honestly don't understand the hype of this book. So if you like it, can you explain to me why? Because I think that there's some really valid social commentary in it, but also like, what was the point? Like, I don't feel like the social commentary was super effective, and I had to go to the lengths of having a live show for it and talking about the book to really fully grasp the concepts. And when I have to do that, I really just don't feel like a book is doing its job, because the reader should be able to understand at least some of that on their own, right? They shouldn't have to go and seek other resources to do so, and they shouldn't have to have an hour-long discussion about the book to really understand all of the concepts. Sure, some of them, not everything should be obvious, but I shouldn't leave the book and wonder what just happened and why. So I can't really go too much into depth about what this book is about, otherwise it will spoil it, but it follows a married couple who appear perfect on paper and appear perfect in front of their friends, but things are a little bit different behind closed doors. So it's kind of just interesting, I guess, to hear about their lives separate from like their public image of themselves. But again, it was just really average for me. I don't have anything really super strong to say about it. Then I have a book that I read for school, which I did not rate, and that was Victor LaValle's Destroyer. This is a graphic novel series, and it's inspired by Frankenstein and a lot of really strong social topics right now, and I really liked it. I think that if I did rate it, I would give it 4 stars. I think that it was very effective in its commentary, and I actually enjoyed a Frankenstein retelling, if you guys can believe it or not, because I really hate Frankenstein and I hate everything about it. This book was really effective in displaying a lot of social commentary in really unique ways. It deals with police brutality and gun violence and things of that nature. But it was just really jarring, I guess, for me to go from scene to scene, because you would go through like this really heartfelt scene and then you would be jumped into action. And I just feel like that was a little bit ineffective at times. And I also found it really, really gory and graphic, and that was something I was not expecting. And this also kind of made me want to throw up because of all of the physical things that I was seeing on paper. Like with a book, I feel like at least I can like skim over that. But with a graphic novel, it's just there on paper and I really can't look away. So it did make me feel a little bit uneasy. But that's okay if that's the point of it. I just wish I had like some sort of warning beforehand. I do recommend it if you like graphic novels, especially ones dealing with social commentary. This is one I feel like no one talks about. I didn't know about it before I had to read it for school, so I definitely encourage you to look into it if that's something you're interested in. And those are all the books that I read for school / read for videos / read for book club. So that was all my quote unquote required reading, and now these are all the books that I just read because just read them for fun. So first of which was ACOTAR, and I'm gonna put this in the good category. I gave it a 3.75 out of 5 stars. Originally when I read this book, I rated it a 4 stars, so I enjoyed it a little bit less upon reread. And it's not that I dislike this book, it's just that I feel like I had these expectations from my teen self that were just not fulfilled. And so I'm just not immediately interested in reading ACOMAF, which is the second book in this series. And I don't know if I'm going to continue my reread of this. I was originally planning to reread all of them before the 4th book came out, but now I'm just not sure if I'm interested in reading the 4th book. And I don't know, I just don't feel as strongly as I used to about these books, unfortunately. But I still really did enjoy my time reading them. If you don't know what ACOTAR is about, it follows a girl named Feyre who kills a fairy, and then she is sent to live in the kingdom of fairy. And it's good. Like, it's probably one of the better Sarah J. Maas books that I've read. Like, I didn't really enjoy the Throne of Glass series, and I do really enjoy the ACOTAR series as a whole. So if I did reread these, I feel like I still would holistically like them, but it was just not as good as I remembered it being, which is kind of disappointing, but it wasn't bad, I guess. I just had really high expectations mentally for it. Then we have Between the World and Me, which I did not rate because it is a nonfiction book. I don't remember too much about this book because it was a 4-hour-long audiobook and I had it probably on like 2.75 speed, so I breezed through it really, really fast. But I do still think it's important. It is anti-racist reading, and I think that you should be continuously educating yourself on topics such as this one. The thing that I really liked about this is that it was written as like a letter to their child, and so it was just an interesting way of formatting the book. I also read Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas, and y'all are gonna get upset about me for this one. I'm gonna put it in average. And I don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings about this. I think that the representation and the topics discussed in this book are super, super important. I just did not like the execution of it, I suppose. I enjoyed it holistically. Like, I gave it 3 stars. That is a better than average book for me, but I don't have any like overly passionate feelings about it. And I'm so glad if you do. I'm so glad if this is your new favorite book. But for me, I guess I was expecting other things to happen that didn't happen. So this book follows a young boy who is a brujo, which means that he can see ghosts. And one day he encounters a ghost because he is trying to summon the spirit of his dead cousin. And so there's kind of this mystery of who killed his cousin Miguel, but it's never really addressed until the end of the book. But it feels like the entire book, the characters are saying, let's go find Miguel, but they don't really actively try. And so that was kind of my frustration with this, is the pacing. I didn't really feel like the task at hand was ever really being actively resolved. And it was much more of a character study, which is fine. I loved hanging out with these characters, and I think that they really make the book shine. But I guess for me, I thought that the book would be something different, not because I had any like preconceived expectations of it, but because of the summary and what happened in the beginning of the book. I just feel like there was a lot of nothing happening in the majority of the plot, which was very disappointing for me. And then at the end, everything was getting rushed to be resolved, which is never my favorite. So the pacing was a big issue for me with this one, but the characters were really strong and the representation is so, so important. So if you are interested in reading this one, I definitely still recommend it to you guys. It is perfect for the fall time. It's very atmospheric and it has really spooky vibes because it takes place at a cemetery for the majority of the book. And then I read And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Frederick Bachman, and I gave this one 5 stars as well, but I think I'm going to put it in the good category because it is not my favorite Frederick Bachman that I've ever read, just because it's so short and you really can't pack as much of an emotional punch as you can in a full-length novel. But that being said, I still loved it, I still gave it 5 stars, and I still cried at it. So this book definitely made me feel all the feelings because it follows a grandfather and his grandson, and they're basically just having a conversation about why grandpa can't remember things and he's struggling with Alzheimer's. So there's a lot that goes on in this book in such a short amount of time, and it was just very, very heartfelt, and I really do want to reread this already because it's so short. It took me probably like 30 minutes to an hour, I don't remember, but it is very good, and if you like Frederick Bachman, definitely still pick this up. It is worth your time. Oh wait, I never rated Five Little Pigs, which was for a video. Guys, I'm so sorry. It's because I thought I already talked about this, but I definitely did not. This was for reading the fictional Meredith video that I did, and I'm gonna put this in the average category because I gave it a 3.5 star rating, but now that I think about it, I really don't remember much about it. This was my first Agatha Christie book, and it was fine. I guess the beginning of the book was really slow, and I think that the ending is what really saved it for me, and I'm still interested in reading books by Agatha Christie, but this one just was kind of okay. The reason why I read it is because there is a character named Meredith in it, and I actually related to him a lot, which was very bizarre. If I remember correctly, it's about a woman who like poisoned her, so it's about a woman who is accused of poisoning her husband, and she goes to jail for it, and she actually dies later in prison very shortly after, but she wrote a letter to her child saying, I actually did not kill my husband, and like I was wrongly accused. And so she's not actually there to send any convincing evidence of it, but her daughter is very assured of her innocence. So she goes to this detective and she's like, my mother actually didn't kill this person, can you help me find out who did? And so that's what the book is about. And it was fine, it just wasn't anything special, I didn't love it. Then we have The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager, and I'm gonna put this in new favorite category because guys, I love this book. I gave it 5 stars, I read it in one night. This book follows a girl who goes to a summer camp when she's younger, and 3 of the girls that she's staying in the cabin with disappear. And so when she's asked to go back to the summer camp as an adult, she's really struggling with it because she feels like it's her fault that these girls disappeared. But she decides to go anyways because she wants to find out what actually happened to them. And the vibes of this book, y'all, like the vibes are just immaculate. I loved being at this summer camp, and I loved hearing about this mystery and what actually happened. And there were just so many twists and turns in this book, especially towards the end, that just really caught me off guard, but everything made perfect sense because Riley Sager did a phenomenal job of setting everything up. So if you liked any of his other books, I definitely recommend that you read The Last Time I Lied. I don't know why people aren't talking about this book very much and why people don't hype it up as much as they hype up his other books, because I didn't love Lock Every Door, but this one is so much better. Like, this might be my new favorite Riley Sager book, and I absolutely adored Home Before Dark. So I think that they're pretty even in my mind. I think that they do different things, but they do them both effectively, and I love it. I think that Riley Sager might be my new favorite thriller author if he continues to deliver those twists and turns, because his writing is just so easy to get into, and I love it. On to my last 2 books for this video. I read Punching the Air, which, to be honest, you guys, I don't remember much about. It is a contemporary told in verse, and I know that it follows a teen who goes to juvenile prison because of, I believe, there's a fight that happens, and so you're following his experience at this prison. And I think that it was beautifully told, and I think that it talks about a lot of important topics, but for me, it just isn't very memorable. I'm struggling to remember what actually happened in this book and what I liked and disliked about it. I think that it was just very average for me. I think that this book could be very special to a lot of people, and I hope that it is, but for me, it just didn't really stick the way I wanted it to. And the last book that I read for this month was Solitaire by Alice Oseman, and I actually did not rate this book because I was very much not paying attention to it when I listened to it, because I did not enjoy the first 2/3 of this book. And at that point, I was kind of like, should I continue this? Should I DNF it? And I decided to continue it anyways, but I probably should have DNF'd it because I really just didn't enjoy it. And that's on me, but that's why I don't want to give it a rating, because I don't want me not paying attention to the actual story to impact my rating and like your perception of it, because I don't want to say like this is a 2-star book or this is a 1-star book when I didn't actually absorb all the information in it. I don't think that it's fair to the book. but I feel like if I did pay attention to the last third of the audiobook, this would have been a 1-star book. So I don't really recommend it, but I also feel like I didn't give it a proper chance, and I should have waited because I know that she's rewriting it, but I found that out when I was 2/3 into the book. So I just decided to finish it. And I don't really know much about this book, to be honest. It follows the same characters that are in the Heartstopper universe. I guess it's the Solitary universe since this is the one that started it all. But it follows Tori, who is Charlie's sister, and she like encounters someone named Michael, and they find out about this blog called Solitaire, and that's all I really retained about this book. I didn't really care for Tori. I didn't care for Michael. I didn't even find myself caring about the Nick and Charlie scenes, which is devastating because I love Heartstopper and I love reading about these characters. I feel like the only thing that I appreciated about this book was hearing more about Nick and Charlie and I guess the direction that Heartstopper is going to go into. So it was cool to hear about that. But overall, I just kind of wish I didn't read this book, not because like it's terrible, but just because I don't really feel like it showcases what Alice Oseman can do. And the only reason I read it was because I wanted to finish her backlist. And I shouldn't have done it. I should have DNF'd it, but unfortunately I finished the book and I really don't know what to say about it because I just had so many conflicting feelings about it. So that is all for this video today. I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still here with me, don't forget to like this video if you liked it, comment down below and let me know what your reading was like this month, if you read any of the books that I read and how you felt about them. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. I also have my Instagram, Twitter, and Amazon wishlist all linked down below if you'd like to connect with me on other platforms or support my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching and for being here today. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.